Well, hello everybody, and good morning again. This is a continuation of my video about a healthy lifestyle, and I'm doing this for my younger sister Courtney, who just turned 60 years of age. This is part number 11, where we're going to talk about water and beverages. This is the second of 3 legs that I believe are important for a healthy lifestyle. The first one that we talked about earlier is the importance of healthy food, whole and natural foods. And in the third section, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it will be about the importance of exercise. As far as water goes, it is very, very important because, one, our bodies are almost 70% water, and our blood is almost 80% water. We need good water for drinking. We need it when we're cooking. We need it for washing our fruits and vegetables and preparing our meals. We even need it when we wash ourselves. And we'll talk about that in a bit. The importance of good drinking water includes this whole concept of minerals. You want minerals like magnesium, potassium, iodine. You want all the little trace minerals that you'd find in really good water. Call it natural mineral water. Unfortunately, very few of us have access to that kind of water quality, so we have to resort to either buying bottled water or using tap water or well water or water from rivers and streams. So it's dealing with that type of water that I wanted to address in this portion of the video. The whole concept of water treatment is to keep the minerals in the water, to disinfect the water, and to remove pollution. As far as chemicals that are in the water, whether you get your water from a well, rivers and streams, or tap water, the whole technology, the whole advance of civilization, if you want to call it that, over the last 50 or 60 or 70 years, has produced chemicals that we never had to deal with in past generations. For example, when you use chlorine to disinfect water, you create a byproduct, thousands and thousands of byproducts called THMs. When you are using tap water or even bottled water, there are things in the water, or in the water itself, that are called endocrine disrupting compounds. There are pharmaceuticals, soaps in the water. These are abbreviated as PPCPs. All of these are mimicking growth hormones in our body. They are disrupting our DNA. They are causing havoc in our digestive system. So we really have to be aware of what's in the water, and we have to be aware of how to treat the water. And I'm just continually amazed at all the dangers that are lurking in our water, all the plastics that we use in our homes, the plastics that are used in water bottles. They have these endocrine disrupting compounds in there. They call them EDCs. The World Health Organization has published a number of papers saying that these compounds, these EDCs, can cause problems with obesity, problems with all kinds of medical problems, And it's a very serious situation. And it's all because of all the technology and the laboratories all over the world and all these, you know, it's just everywhere in modern society. As far as the water treatment options go, one of the most popular water treatment options is what they call reverse osmosis, and that's called RO for short. That's a membrane where the water is squeezed through, and pretty much only water is able to get through it. And one of the problems with that, though, is that a lot of the minerals that are important are left behind. Some people kind of compare RO water to water that you'd use to distilled water. And if you are using distilled water or drinking distilled water or RO water that has removed all the minerals, unfortunately your body will take those minerals from the bones and tissues of the body in order to restore a balance of those minerals in your body. Another popular water treatment system is called UV, and that's where they shine an ultraviolet lamp on a stream of water. It will prevent the bacteria from multiplying after that. And you have to make sure, if you're using UV lamps, that the water is very, very clear. Otherwise, if there's bacteria that's hiding behind a shadow, it will not receive a dose of this radiation, and it will not be neutralized, so to speak. Another option is ozone. I like to think of ozone more as a pre-treatment. In other words, it's a treatment process that is done before a drinking water filter. But ozone can be used very effectively to remove iron, manganese, the rotten egg smell they call sulfur dioxide. And the World Health Organization says that ozone can also remove over 90% of the endocrine disrupting compounds and other compounds in the water that mimic hormones in our body. Another water treatment option would be ceramic, and it's used as a barrier where only the water can get through, although many of the minerals can also pass through, because the holes inside of a ceramic container or a barrier are not as small as the holes inside of an RO filter. Finally, there's a lot of technology related to carbon, activated carbon and carbon blocks, and these can remove heavy metals and volatile organic compounds. We call those VOCs. It can also help remove chlorine. Activated carbon is something that I think would be useful in any person's home treatment process. So the benefit as one popular commentator says, Dr. Mercola, who has the largest, I think one of the largest websites in the world related to health, he believes that if you do not filter your water, he says that you become the filter. And I think he is correct. Just a few more words here about ozone, because a lot of people have never heard of it before. Ozone is 3 atoms of oxygen, and it forms a molecule of these 3 atoms of oxygen, and we call that ozone. Except for the ozone itself, normally the byproducts of ozone treatment are chemical free, and one can use ozone water treatment for household water, cooking water, washing. You can also use it in the pools and spas. That machine there is actually an ozone machine, and this water that I'm swimming in is treated with ozone and oxygen, and other than that there have never been any chemicals in this water. That's why I can swim in it every day without having problems with my skin or my eyes. As far as good drinking water, a system that I'd recommend, it would be where you pre-treat the water with ozone, and then you could have a UV lamp, you could have multimedia, you could have an RO system there, if necessary, to remove any other unwanted chemicals. For example, if you're living in an urban area and they're putting fluoride, then you probably would need an RO system if you wanted to get rid of the fluoride in the water. As far as you want to be able to remove 99.99% of all the bacteria in the water and the volatile organic compounds, you want to remove the chlorine byproducts, they call the THMs. There's the EDCs again, these endocrine disrupting compounds, and all the PPCPs, those are all the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that people take, all the soaps. It all goes down the drain or goes down the toilet, and eventually it ends up in the water supply. It's in the rivers, it's in the groundwater. You know, just as an example, they use pesticides and herbicides in agriculture all over the place, and it finds its way in the water supply. And while the municipal water treatment system may try to get rid of bacteria in the water before you send it out to your home, it doesn't have the technology or the time and the money to remove all the chemicals that are in the water. And these chemicals, little by little by little, are damaging our DNA and making us age a lot faster. So if there's a way to, like Dr. McCullough says, if you don't filter the water, you become the filter. Just one word, Courtney, I wanted to share with you. It's called XENOHORMONES, and it comes from one of the ancient languages. Xeno meant stranger, and so there are xenoestrogens. Your body can't tell the difference between these xenohormones from the outside world and your own hormones that your body makes. So it's a very disrupting situation. How can I explain this concept of hormones in a very simple way? Hormones are messengers in the body. And let's say that you're working on a big project. You've been preparing for this project for 2 years, and hundreds of people are involved. And then finally one day, it comes down to decision day. You get on the phone and you're talking to another person that's whose agreement is needed to let the project go forward. And the other person says on the phone, "Okay." Just that simple communication, "okay," is enough to start a whole group of people and let the project go forward, and all the funding and the construction or what have you. Just that tiny little simple communication, "okay." You can think of that as a hormone in your body. A hormone is just communicating from one part of the body to another. And it's saying, okay, or not okay, in all of these bodily functions. And that's what these XENOHORMONES are doing. They're invading your body, and they're saying okay to this and no okay to that. And that's why they're so disruptive. You have to get them out of your water supply. And I think probably to review here, the most effective ways to do that would either be RO, reverse osmosis, but that can strip all the minerals away, or you can use an ozone water treatment system that will leave the minerals, but a lot of the pollutants and the volatile organic compounds will be bubbled away through the proper application of an ozone pre-treatment system. Or if you're using it for a pool, it's wonderful. Let's talk about beverages now. Most of my favorite beverages are in the fermented class, whether that's whey or kefir or fruit that has been fermented. What you want is to give bacteria the chance to digest many of these liquids first. Personally, I think raw milk is fine if it comes from a well cared for proper dairy. And you've got an owner that looks and dotes over every animal and tests everything, all the animals regularly. But personally, I believe that if you give bacteria a chance to gobble up the sugars that are in the milk, it produces something called kefir. And kefir will provide your system, your gut, with all kinds of wonderful, helpful bacteria. So they call that a probiotic. That's true of vegetable juices. It's true of all the beverages. If you can choose a beverage that can be fermented, that's wonderful. In moderation, most of the experts don't see too much wrong with very, very moderate consumption of alcohol, but they think of that more as a treat. In other words, if we're sticking to this theme of whole and natural foods, and we extend that to beverages, well, fruit juice, which is what they start with to make wine, that's just a single, very small part. A lot of the fiber, a lot of the nutrients have all been discarded, and what's left is this concoction that they're going to turn into wine. The benefit there is that through the fermentation process, and this holds true for beer, that some of the sugar have been taken out. So that is a slight benefit. At least it's not a sweetened beverage. That would fall into the RCO category. Talking about sweetened beverages, we have this big stop sign, and that's there because certainly you do not want any type of beverage that has been adulterated with artificial sweeteners. You don't want artificial chemicals and artificial sweeteners. It can leach minerals from your body. There are neurotoxins. It damages your brain. And there are free radicals. And you remember our whole discussion about AGEs. Those are proteins that have been damaged by sugar and denatured. And just think of your skin wilting away. If you want a nice mental image of what sugar can do to your face. Now, the third leg of a healthy lifestyle should include regular exercise. Now, I am trying to provide an example here by swimming in this, treading water in this little pool here. But here's the point. If you have a healthy lifestyle, you naturally want to eat less, and you want to exercise more. You want to eat less junk food, and you want to move around. You want to exercise. Unfortunately, an unhealthy person wants to eat more and exercise less. In this video, I have listened to a lot of experts who've really explained the benefits of regular moderate exercise, and there are also a couple of experts that are promoting a new form of exercise. They call that high intensity or burst training. As far as exercise goes, it is very clear that we as animals, we are meant to move. I have a picture there of the horse and the tiger and the ape or the gorilla or whatnot. They all move all the time. When we take them out of their natural habitat and we put them in a zoo, everything starts to deteriorate quickly. Why? Because they're not moving around like they were meant to be. Because they're not moving around like their DNA, their whole body design was meant to be. And as humans, we have the same design. If you're not moving around, if you're not exercising, if you're not doing something every day, you are disrupting your basic design. So it's not that exercise is something that's important. It's much more than that. It's much more than important. It's part of our genetic makeup. It's part of our design. So if you're not doing it, you're not following your own blueprint of how you're supposed to live. When we were, we talk about how to move around, or the importance of movement. Well, naturally, we had to move around in years past to survive. Now it's not necessary anymore because we've got the telephone and the automobile and the motorcycle and the buses, the trains and the airplanes. But if you go back 2 million years or 3 million years and you trace evolution, these our predecessors were moving all the time. And that movement is part of how our body works. So if you're not moving, you won't work. In other words, your body won't work. So I think I'm trying to make that point as clearly as I can here. If you compare it now to the modern era, we have our sedentary life, we have all the technology, the food, the convenience. It has led to what we call a dysfunctional metabolism. And that's because on a cellular level, and remember we said, Courtney, that you want to think in terms of each cell in your body. Each cell has to take in energy and remove the waste from that energy. And it has to do it every minute that you're alive. When you don't exercise, when you don't move that's when you start on that slippery slope down. Now, a lot of people, when they think of exercise, they think of walking, running, swimming, and sports and all that, which is wonderful. But a lot of the experts also recommend that we should try some resistant training. Resistant training is pushing against something, using your muscles to lift something, to push something, to bend something. It doesn't look like I'm doing much here in the water, but every time my legs go back and forth or my hands go back and forth, I am pushing against the water. The water is a resistance, and that's just an example of one type of resistance movement that I do all the time. Sometimes I'll lift some weights. Sometimes I'll walk with what they call these heavy hands. There's another theory now of exercise, and I wanted to mention it briefly. It's called burst training or high-intensity training, where for several minutes or several, I guess longer than several minutes, and periodically throughout the week or a day, you really push yourself to some sort of maximum effort. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But today is Friday, and every Friday I do my own little form of burst training. And I will demonstrate it now. It's where I kind of hold my hands and I try to swim in the pool here. This pool is about 6 feet deep, so I have to continue treading water if I'm going to keep breathing. So anyway, I'll just demonstrate this little burst training that I do. There's a doctor that I have listed in this video who's one of the world's experts on this subject, so I would defer all the details about burst high-intensity training to him and the commentators, that they're all in that kind of group. But this is something that I do. So I hold my hands, and now I'm trying to, I look at the clock, and it's a few minutes to 9 here in the morning, and I'll just try to, when I first did this, I could only, I couldn't even make it for 1 minute. What happened was I had a friend over here that a doctor at a local hospital, and he had been a Marine, and he said, "Charles, you're, well and good, you're swimming here in the water, but why don't you try holding your hands, or putting your hands over your head," I think he said. Well, I tried that. That was a couple months ago. I couldn't even do it for 1 minute. What I did, I tried to study up on this whole concept of burst training, high-intensity training, and started to apply some of the principles. So the theory is that your muscles have different muscle fibers, and we can do aerobics, and we can do walking, and we can do all these, let's say, moderate exercises for an hour. But the real benefits for longevity, for health, for being fit and firm, that comes from a high-intensity burst training, where your heart is being called upon to work a lot harder for a short period of time, where some of the muscle fibers that normally don't get used are called upon to do things that for a very short period of time as well. But these are a classification of muscle fibers that normally are never used. So the net effect of all this burst training is that for a very short period of time, you will, for a very short period of time, you'll be using energy in a way that you normally don't use it. Your cells will be using it in a very healthy manner. Now, any discussion about energy in the body has to touch upon a topic called mitochondria. Mitochondria are tiny little bags or sacs inside every cell, and some cells have, I guess, hundreds, and some cells don't have any apparently. Apparently, a red blood cell doesn't have any mitochondria. But cells in your brain, your muscles, most of the other cells in your body, your nerves, everything, they all use mitochondria. And what mitochondria do, and the fellow who figured it all out got a Nobel Prize for it, they convert sugar, specifically glucose, or another type of energy we'll talk about in a bit, called a ketone. But they will convert sugars into a form of energy that our body can use for its bodily functions. And it's very important. And there are a lot of people that believe that cancer is caused by mitochondria that have deteriorated, that have become dysfunctional. And the goal in our life and in our healthy lifestyle is to keep our mitochondria in very good shape. And this high-intensity burst training that I'm trying to demonstrate right now is part of that effort. Now, the one thing that the proponents of high-intensity or burst training believe is that if you can do this periodically, and they don't advocate it every day because they say it takes time for your muscles to repair themselves. High-intensity burst training, like many things that we do to improve ourselves, the improvement comes from repairing some sort of damage that we've done. So when we are exercising quickly, we're moving these muscle fibers, we're moving them to the point where they need to take some time afterwards and repair themselves. And one of the benefits that they promote in this burst training is an overall general improvement in your health and your metabolic function. And I'll speak more to that later on in this video. Right now I just kind of wanted to demonstrate. Can't really see it in the video, but I've been holding my hands now let's see, I guess I started a few minutes before the hour. And like I said, the first time I tried to do this, I couldn't do it for a minute. I tried it again a couple of days later, and a couple of days later after that, I got to the point where I could at least do it for a minute. And I remember several months ago when I could do it for 2 minutes, and I thought that that was one heck of an accomplishment. And then I got up to 3 minutes, 4 minutes. When I started doing it for 4 minutes, then I decided I would start doing it every Friday. And as luck would have it, when I'm doing this video for you, Courtney, today is Friday morning over here, and I'm just going to be able to do my normal routine, and I'll try to chit-chat a little bit as I can so that you're not bored to tears watching this process. Some of the effects that I noticed, I was able, or I have been able, to increase from 4 minutes to 5, 6, 7. I remember about a month or so ago, I got up to 8 minutes, and I thought that that is truly remarkable. Again, you can't see this in the video, but I am moving my legs back and forth fast enough to keep breathing here. If I stop the process, I mean stop the swimming, I will sink if I don't use my legs or my hands. So I think now that I've been doing this, I believe, since a couple of minutes before the top of the hour, and I think for demonstration purposes I'll go another 2 or 3 minutes. But the one thing that I noticed as far as my own situation, and that was often a couple times a week, I'll take a long walk through the forests around here. Some of the trails have quite an incline, and I noticed 6 months ago that I would huff and puff going up those hills, but in the last month or so, my huffing and puffing has decreased, and my stride going up the hill, it didn't really slow down. When I was going up the hill, I'd ask myself, are you slowing down? Are you getting fatigued or tired? And I would just kind of assess my own performance, and I had the impression that on a given incline, on a given hill, I could have kept going. It's a little bit like this video that I'm trying to demonstrate right now. I can't get too close to the wall over here because my feet will hit the wall, so I have to turn sideways here. But I guess, I'm not sure, but I believe I could go for a number of minutes doing this. Now maybe by definition, if I could do this for a number of minutes, maybe I'm no longer doing a burst, high intensity exercises. But between you and me, this feels like I'm, high intensity doing something. But anyway, going back to the huffing and the puffing, I noticed if I took a walk after a big meal, I had less huffing and puffing after I started to do this, I'm not sure what you'd call this, but I'm treading water in place, but I'm holding my hands. Now, sometimes I will reverse this and I will lock my feet together and I'll just use my hands to paddle and keep myself lifted out of the water. I'll show that in a moment if I don't forget. But anyway, I think we're coming up on 12 minutes of this little demonstration. I guess 12 minutes means, according to the doctor who is promoting this type of exercise, that would mean that I suppose it's not high intensity or not intense enough. There were a few times that I did lift some weights and followed his advice, but generally speaking, swimming is the exercise that seems to work best for me. By the way, this swimming pool, I don't use but a tiny fraction of it. Probably less than 6 feet by 9 feet at any given time. Maybe in a later video I will swim in a new little swimming pool that I had made out of stainless steel, and it uses the same ozone machine over here. And just to explain a little bit, this ozone machine, as you know, Courtney, because we've donated so much time and effort to the people that were involved in it. Water does not pass through that ozone machine. What it does, it creates a stream of bubbles on the outside of the pool, which ends up sucking the water from the pool to a little small outside filter module, and then the water is passed through the filter media and goes back to the pool. So it's a way of having crystal clear water, and I think now I'll start swimming. Normally now I think it's probably been about maybe 14 minutes or so. Now when we exercise, as we all know, we should drink a lot of water. The water in this pool passed with flying colors. At a local university water safety laboratory, and it's my hope that people in the future do not have to swim in a pool that has chlorine or in another pool that has salt. And as most pool professionals know, a salt pool, which is a pool where they put in sodium chloride, is a type of chlorine pool where the electronic gadgetry converts the salt, the sodium chloride, it converts the chloride into chlorine. And a lot of people, they like their saltwater pool experience, but I'd love to invite anyone over here because this is like swimming in spring water. This water has been like this for over 10 years. And Courtney, you came here, what, a few years back, and I know we were swimming together. When people swim together and they listen to each other. And before I forget, I would like to just kind of put out there, just float it, okay, that people who are in conflict resolution, or husband and wives, or partners, or adversaries of different kinds, if you swim together, and I'm talking treading water together, and you do this for a half an hour or an hour, and you do it periodically together, you find that you listen to each other better. You find that ideas come to your, great ideas just kind of pop into your mind, and it's a wonderful experience. So I wanted to just mention that swimming can have a wonderful side benefit. And by the way, I swim an hour every day before I have my breakfast. And normally I'll put a small computer here and I'll watch a documentary or a movie, an old movie with Ronald Colman, or you know, all the wonderful old actresses and whatnot. And I do also have another wish, which I'll put out there. Courtney, maybe you can contact some people. What if Sony Corporation or Ted Turner or whoever they are that have all these old movies and documentaries and whatnot, what happens if they put these movies out there for people to watch while they were exercising? Because I don't like to exercise. I don't like it at all, but I love to be entertained. And if I'm watching a movie, and the movie is a great movie, an hour goes by in a flash. I've often joked to myself, I say, you know, if the movie's a good one, the exercise hour just passes by so quickly. And if I were ever asked to rate the entertainment value of a movie or music, sometimes I'll swim to music, it would be the speed with which time passes. So if it's been a really entertaining movie and the hour was up before I knew it, that was wonderful. Often it will be a cold and rainy morning and I won't even feel like swimming. But fortunately, I found a great movie on YouTube. There are great movies there and great documentaries. I've watched documentaries about Einstein and Isaac Newton and the people who invented electricity and the AC motors and electric lights and all these things. It's just wonderful. The information just goes right in. So if people have trouble learning, maybe they can tread water and watch. And anyway, Courtney, one of the reasons I'm doing this whole video on the water is because I wanted to really demonstrate that if you had your executive meetings in the pool, just invite everybody over. Tell them to bring their bathing suit. For goodness sakes, why couldn't our president and the cabinet members tread water in a small pool, listen to each other? The ideas would come like little lightning bolts for everybody. It's just wonderful. And oftentimes when you're listening to other people, you can understand where they're coming from and you can reach a resolution quicker. and with a much greater compassion for the other point of view. So anyway, now what's the next slide here? I'm sorry, the benefits of exercise. So all the experts, they all say together that it reduces the risk of chronic diseases. Some of them believe that it increases brain function and brain learning. And I've seen some videos where they test people before and after an exercise regime. And some people, some of the experts even believe that you can grow new brain cells. In the past, they thought that that was impossible, but I think now that the new research is showing that when you are exercising, you put your brain also under a little bit of stress, that kind of helpful stress and helpful repair that leads to better brain function. It certainly increases the blood flow. And there's that word, Courtney, I wanted you to learn today. Mitochondria. Mitochondria. They're little, like I said, they're little sacs. They're little sacs. They could look like somebody in a sleeping bag, all bundled up. And inside, they are converting all of this energy that we got from the plants, or from animals that ate plants, basically energy from the sun. I want to say that again. So the mitochondria are converting that energy. And when you're exercising, you are keeping your mitochondria in top shape. Very important, very important. The other benefit of exercise is something called hormone sensitivity, and this whole sense of energy expenditure. So as you can see, I'm moving around. You can see just a little bit of my arms there. The muscles in my arms, the muscles in my stomach and my torso and my legs, they are moving. And that movement is creating a demand for energy. So the mitochondria boost their energy output, and it keeps the mitochondria in shape. The mitochondria are tiny little, you can think of them as tiny little power plants by the hundreds in our cells. Hormone sensitivity is a topic which we're going to get into in the next section here. But remember, I had this earlier example where I tried to explain in a very basic form what a hormone is, or what it's like, or something like that. Remember, you can't talk to some section of your body. You can't tell your kidney, for example, to increase or decrease the amount of water in your blood. You can't talk to your liver and tell your liver, well, you've created enough fat already, let's stop making more fat. The only way that you can communicate is through hormones and the whole nervous system in your body. Now remember, I gave the example of some big project, and at the end of this whole lengthy preparation, you were waiting for one phone call, and that one phone call had one bit of communication in it, and that was, okay. Okay, meaning we're going ahead with the project. Hormone sensitivity would be something like the person on the other end of the line is saying, okay, but your ability to hear it or not is now the question that we are trying to address. Can you hear the words okay clearly? Or is it very faint, like it's coming from down the other end of a long tunnel in some mine shaft? In other words, if you're getting communication, are you getting clear communication? Are you getting quick communication the way that the cells and the hormone communication system was designed? Or are the cells in your body unable to hear these words or any more communication like something as simple as okay? So that's what we're going to talk about in the next section. And I'm going to take a little break here for a moment, and I'll rejoin you in a little bit. Well, this is a continuation of the presentation about a healthy lifestyle. As we previously discussed, a healthy lifestyle is three legs to it: whole and natural foods, good water and beverages, and regular exercise. Now in this section we're going to talk about lifestyle choices. And if you have a healthy lifestyle, you'll have happiness. If you have a poor lifestyle, the result is misery. And many of the older people will remember W.C. Fields said that in a very famous remark about finances, and he said, if you make 20 and you spend 21, the result, misery. If you make 20 and you spend 19, the result, happiness. So it's also true for your lifestyle. As far as the misery of a poor lifestyle goes, the main topic here is called the metabolic function. And when this all starts to go south, it's called the metabolic syndrome. And other problems start to happen: inflammation and chronic diseases. The metabolic syndrome is really a cluster of markers. And doctors and scientists break these clusters into basically 5 markers. As you can see up here is a large belly, high blood pressure, high sugar in your blood, they call fasting glucose, and a lot of fat in your blood, they call that high triglycerides. And they also measure the amount of what the so-called good cholesterol, which they call the HDL cholesterol. Here's a little graphic from one of Dr. Lustig's slides. And he believes that the metabolic syndrome impacts a number of chronic diseases: heart disease, lipid problems or fat in the blood, high blood pressure, diabetes, brain dysfunction, Alzheimer's for example, cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and non-alcoholic fatty liver. The list of chronic diseases can just go on and on. Macular degeneration, where you start to go blind, strokes, poor cardiovascular function. It just goes on and on and on and on. So if you try to understand how lifestyle can affect these conditions, you are really on the road to a happy life, as W.C. Fields would say. When we talk about metabolism, there's something that we have to understand at a very basic level, and that is that prehistoric man, and I suppose all animals in the wild, maybe all plants, but at least all the animals, we all go through a period where we have food and when we don't. This whole notion of feast or famine. Now, feast or famine, these states of life, have very profound effects on how our bodies work. Because on the one hand, if we are feasting, if there's food available, our body goes into a growth and reproductive phase. On the other hand, if we're starving, if there's famine, our body goes into a survival mode. And if you think of this at the cell level, and Courtney, I want to remind you to go back and think of the cells in your skin, on your face. But it could be a cell anywhere. It could be in the brain. It could be in the heart. It could be a cell in your blood vessel. It could be a cell in your kidney. We have to think of how feast or famine affects that cell and how our metabolic design, how the very DNA, the basic makeup of how we operate as an animal, as a human, how that is taking place at the cell level. And don't forget, even deep inside the cell, those little power plants that we call the mitochondria. Now, because in nature there's this whole concept of feast or famine, I like to think in terms of two metabolic systems that exist side by side inside of us. As humans, we'll just talk about us, we have two metabolic systems. One metabolic system that's kind of operating in times of plenty, and another metabolic system that's operating in times of famine. Today, we are really designed to handle both of these conditions. If you go to the doctor and they test your level of sugar in your blood, they call that, they ask you to fast for a period of time, whether it's 8 hours or 12 hours. I don't know what the rule is there in California, I forgot. But that's because they want to know how your metabolism is doing after a period of time where you have not eaten. And by that, they will have the doctors will be able to assess a lot more about your liver function, your brain function, and your hormone sensitivity. And remember that hormone sensitivity, again, is whether or not you can hear the okay, the signal. Can you hear it? Can your cell hear a signal or receive a message that some other place in the body is sending to the cell? So, as far as this whole notion of feast or famine, we have to think in terms of food, and energy. And remember I said before that these lowly little leaves are really a miracle of nature, because they take the light from the sun, they take water and carbon dioxide, part of the air that we breathe, they mix it with some minerals in the soil and some help from algae and whatnot, but basically these three items, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and they take those three things and they'll make sugars, they'll make fats, they'll make oils. Animals will eat these plants and they will make fats and oils, and when we consume that as a human, we have to think in terms of our ability to use that energy and what happens to it. Now, at the very top up here, I mentioned that we keep our energy in our blood at about 5 grams. Now, what on earth does that mean? It means that if I were to hold up my finger, let's say about that much of my finger, not even my whole finger, but just, you know, part of it, that would weigh about 5 grams. And that's about how much glucose we keep in our blood at any given time. It's kind of our normal, what they call the baseline. Just like our temperature is 98.6, or 37 if you're in another part of the world on the metric system. But just as we keep our temperature at a certain level, so we want to keep the amount of sugar in our blood at a certain level. It's very important. And there are many, our metabolism is built upon many, our whole nervous system, our whole hormone system, it's all built around trying to maintain this baseline energy level in our blood, in our body. So, as far as the hormones go, you've got a tiny little organ called the pancreas that sits in the torso near the liver, and that makes insulin. It makes something else, another hormone called glucagon, and amylin, I think, is another hormone that is made. In the intestines, in your gut, you have GLP-1 and GIP. You have other organs in your body, little tiny glands and whatnot, that will make epinephrine, cortisol, growth hormones. This might be the pituitary gland, and but anyway, the point of it is you have all kinds of hormones throughout your body made in different places that are all concerned about maintaining this 5 grams of energy level that you have in your body. Now, when you eat something, the amount of energy in your blood goes up, because eating something is how we fuel our body. And that's where all these different hormones come together to try to figure out what they're going to do with all this influx of energy and how they're going to store it and handle it and use it. Also, when you go for a period of time where you have not eaten, you have another whole cascade of hormones and your nervous system and all that working together, trying to figure out how to maintain this baseline of energy in your bloodstream, in your body. Now, one very important point that is often overlooked and that is the effect of stress on your energy level in the body. And for example, cortisol is a hormone that can have very definite effects on your blood sugar levels and on your ability to your whole metabolism, your whole sleeping patterns. A lot of things can change under stress. And I decided in this video, even though that stress is a very important factor to deal with in our life, it's something that is a little harder to control. Our sleep patterns, what happens at work, what happens in our relationships. It's a little harder to control than some of the other hormones. And I'm talking now about at least in terms of what we eat and what we don't eat and how that affects our hormones. So I will defer to all the other medical experts and researchers that are involved in stress management for their whole discussion on how that affects our metabolism. But I have devoted most of my effort in the last several years to use exercise as a way of stress management, to use some foods as a way of stress management, but to primarily concentrate on how exercise, how beverages, and how the food that we eat affects our hormone levels as it applies to metabolism. Now, this starts to go off into my own kind of overview of this whole topic. And I should say quickly that the best advice would come from a doctor or researchers that are really involved in this as a profession, because I'm just going to give it my general overview. As far as regulating energy in our body, I want to focus on the two big hormones. I call them big in terms of my world. And the first one is insulin, and the second one is a hormone also made in the pancreas, and it's called glucagon. Now, I've shortened this the name of this hormone to GG. It's got two G's in the word glucagon, and frankly, I had trouble remembering the hormone, remembering how to spell it, and sometimes I still have trouble saying it. So, with your permission, I'll just refer to glucagon as GG from now on. So, in terms of how we regulate our energy in our body, and remember, that energy is coming from the sun. Those rays of the sun are creating the energy into the plants, and we're eating the plants, and we are eating the animals that ate the plants. And we have to regulate this energy from the sun. When we eat something, when we have a feast, think of insulin. And when you're in a period of fasting, no food, famine, think of GG. And more than that, when you think of insulin or GG, don't think of them as an isolated hormone. Think of them as team insulin or Team Gigi, because they never act alone. In fact, they not only, it's not that they don't act alone, it's that in their own right, insulin is really like the conductor of a whole symphony. And every member of the symphony might be a messenger or another hormone or a receptor. And what insulin is doing is trying to manage all the energy that you're eating and taking in during a meal. I mentioned here the storage of glucose and fats. Normally we don't think in terms of protein as being something our body wants to use as energy, although it certainly can if there's no other sugars or fats available. Insulin will manage how protein is synthesized and how your cell grows, and how you would think in terms of reproduction, whether you're male or female, frankly, for that matter. Insulin will work with relays and receptors and other enzymes in your body, almost like a domino effect. So when you think of insulin, think of the insulin symphony. Just think of all the other members in that whole orchestra. And the same thing is true for Gigi. We want to think about the Gigi Symphony Orchestra, because each one of these members of the orchestra, they're involved in how different parts of your body work together in times of famine, in times where there is no food available. Now, some of the things that Gigi does, it will signal the liver to release sugars that have been stored in the liver, because, like I said a long time ago, your body's been designed for feast or famine. And during the famine phase, your liver and your muscle cells have stored energy. They've stored sugars. They've stored glucose. And Gigi will signal the liver to release, meter out this glucose so that your brain can use it and your other cells in the body can use this glucose. Gigi does not directly interact with the muscle cells in your body. The receptors to release the glucose are there on your liver. Gigi will also signal the liver and the fat cells to release energy. And these are stored, what we call stored triglycerides, or stored fat. And Gigi will do this by sending messengers, and it will go to a cell and knock on the door of a receptor. It will stimulate enzymes. By the way, I forgot to mention that one of the functions that insulin, back to insulin now, is that insulin will inhibit some of these enzymes that Gigi would like to stimulate. So that makes sense, because if you're eating, insulin wants to inhibit or prevent enzymes that would be active during the time that Gigi is working away to in a fasted state. And that makes sense, because you don't want to have two opposing metabolic processes going on at the same time. Finally, Gigi is very intimately connected to the whole notion of cell repair. cell repair. And that's something that's a little hard to find in the literature directly, but I have reviewed a number of medical experts, PhDs, that firmly believe that during periods of starvation, during that time, your body's not thinking in terms of growth and reproduction. During periods of starvation, what you're thinking about is survival. Survival. That's why I have this little cactus plant there. You're thinking of survival. And what is your, what's the primordial mission of survival? And that is to preserve what you have and to keep what you have in top shape. And it's this whole notion of survival and cell repair that I believe in years to come, Gigi is going to be, just right in the center of that whole effort. So that's why I call this the Gigi Symphony.